Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids mission to help families grow closer through reading together. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Evette Davis. She is here to celebrate her Adventures of Sunny picture book series. Before we invite Evette into the studio, we want to invite you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on our blog and check out our brand new Reading with Your Kids certified great read, The Big Move by Marla Humer. The Big Move is a great resource for any parent looking to help their children deal with the many emotions involved in moving or any big transition. Written by Marla Humer, a school psychologist, The Big Move tells a sweet story about a lovely little snail family as they prepare to move into a new home. The snail kids are understandably excited and concerned, experiencing many of the same emotions human children feel when their family has to move or when a close friend is moving. Humer's snail parents lovingly comfort their kids, helping them deal with their fears and sadnesses while encouraging them to look forward to new friendships and adventures. This really is a wonderful book. We loved it. We think your kids and family will love it too. We especially love the illustrations, and we love that Marla has provided resources that will allow you and your family to create your own great illustrations. We love it. It's The Big Move by Marla Humer, our latest Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Joining us right now from right outside of our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. She is the author of The Adventures of Sunny, a beautiful picture book series that she created with her mom. Please welcome to the show, Evette Davis. Evette, how are you?
Hello, Jedley. I am well. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
I'm really excited to have you on the show. I was sharing with Evette. I immediately smiled when I saw the title of her picture book series because Sonny was my dad's nickname as he was growing up running the streets of Boston, probably running amok on the streets of Boston. So it was really, really cool. And you would tell me that it was your brother's nickname, right?
Absolutely. My mom actually called my brother Sonny, her firstborn son, because he was so bright and cheery. She called him Sonny. So that was her private nickname for my brother. So we both have fond memories of the name Sonny.
That's awesome. Now, you were telling me before the show that your mom was this incredible teacher.
Jedley, yes. She was a master teacher. And I say that with confidence. They would always have, first of all, she was a teacher in Washington, D.C., inner city schools back in the 60s and 70s. So just think of that time frame. But they would always put the hardest kids in her class, the kids that never came to school, that had truancy issues. And she would turn them into wonderful lovers of school and reading and education. So I was privy to that, with her being my mom. She wasn't my formal teacher, but I learned a lot of her master teaching ways and parenting ways that she brought to her classroom as well.
Yeah. My wife is celebrating her 33rd year as a teacher, special needs teacher in the Boston public school systems. And every year she comes home the same thing. Oh, they gave me this kid has been so difficult. None of the teachers been able to work with him. I don't know why they're punishing me. And I would always turn around and go, no, they're just understanding that you're the only person that is going to be able to reach this kid. So you should take it as a compliment. It's a lot of work, but it's a compliment.
Yes, it sounds like your wife has that same gift.
Yeah, and it really is a gift. And I'm so happy that you were able to carry her legacy on. And you were telling me this was always her dream to be a children's author.
Yes, so my mother started writing these books during her retirement.
Hmm.
So after she was up in years, she retired from the classroom, a wonderful 35-year career. She just missed her students so much and her own kids. We were grown at that time. So she started writing these little stories. But age kicked in and time went on, and back then they didn't have anything like self-publishing like we have it now. So the book sort of just got stuck in the file drawer. And as time passed and it was clear that Mom would never be able to see this dream come true on her own, I decided to help her out. And I said, you know what? I can do this. So I wrote a couple titles, and I found an illustrator, and I found a self-publishing company, and I packaged it all up, and it was quite a long process. But now we have The Adventures of Sunny, a joint co-author collaboration between a school teacher and her daughter. Both of us loving education, and I feel a really awesome parent.
Yeah. What a beautiful, beautiful story in itself. What was your mom's reaction when she saw the first book?
Well, I will tell you that my mom does have dementia, but she doesn't always have clarity of speech. However, when I put the book in her hand and I started reading it to her, she smiled incredibly and she started laughing. So I know that she recognized her own story when I started reading the books to her. So that was so heartwarming for myself and for all of our family.
That is beautiful. I know my mom had the same struggle, and I'm going to keep you in my prayers because it's difficult for the person dealing with dementia, but it's also difficult for the family. I think it might be more difficult for the family. So to be able to take this challenge on, and we've talked a lot here on the podcast. We have a lot of authors listening, and we've had special episodes giving information to self-published and indie authors. It's a lot of work, and to be able to take that challenge on while also caring and loving for someone struggling with dementia is quite an accomplishment.
Well, I thank you, and that's probably why it took 3 years. I don't always love to say that, but it was a very long road to write them, rewrite them. I would get some of my nieces and nephews sometimes, or neighbors' kids, and read it to them and make sure they were laughing, and they also thought it was entertaining, and just making sure it was along the same standard that my mother would be proud of. Yeah. And then, of course, caring for her, and we did have to eventually get help to care for her, because I will tell you, and I'm sure you know this, Jedley, the caretakers will need care if they don't implement self-care, because it can really just take a toll on you. Yes,
and we're certainly going off on an unexpected trail here, but it's important. You're absolutely right. And a lot of times, people who are caring for somebody in the family that are ill, they're like, no, this person loved me and they were able to take care of me without any help, so I need to do the same for them. And that's unrealistic. You absolutely, you need help, and you should accept it where people are willing to give you a hand and ask for help. It's a great lesson that we all need to embrace. I want to find out about the stories. Can you tell us a little bit about Sonny? I know he's inspired by your brother. Who are we going to meet?
So The Adventures of Sonny is a set of 5 books, and they start when Sonny is just home from the hospital. That's book 1, all the way up to book 5, which is Sonny Turns 5. So it's a collection of this curious kid, Sonny, and the book is told from his perspective. So basically we see the world through Sonny's eyes as he discovers and learns about the world around him. And each book is slightly different, and I'm happy to go through the, just to give you a brief description of the 5 titles.
Sure, that would be great.
Okay, so the first one is Sonny, Too Little Too Young. This is the one where Sonny is just home from the hospital, and he's always being held and cradled by someone, and he's just too little and too young to do anything. So he's looking at all the busyness around him, and you hear the thoughts of this infant who really wants to jump into life, but he can't because he's an infant. So after arriving home from the hospital, Sonny notices that he can't do the same things as the big people in his family. Sonny may be small, but that doesn't stop him from being curious and inquisitive about his surroundings. We follow along with Sonny as he discovers what it's like to be too little and too young to do many things.
Wow.
So that's book 1. And then book 2 is Dinner Time with Sonny. So Sonny, the smallest member of the family, is anxious to do big people things. And during dinner, Sonny is stuck in his high chair and he can't reach Mama's home-cooked food like the others. So again, there's this sense of, I want to get out there. I want some steak. I want some mashed potatoes, but he can't. But there's one thing that his small size is just perfect for. And before the night is over, Sonny finds satisfaction in being just his size.
Excellent. Excellent. That's really fun. I'm imagining that this would be, I'm imagining holding my kids on my lap reading this book when they were 3 or 4 or 5 years old, and for them to really kind of have an opportunity to see how much they've grown. And it would be a great launching point for the family to continue talking about, when you were a baby and you did this and you did that and you were different than your sister because of this. And that's a really fun thing for a family to do.
Yes, it is. And these books have all sorts of those family gem moments in it. That's what this book is all about. It's really about family. So you see them at the dinner table with Sonny in his high chair and he's just crying because, to everybody else it just sounds like, ah, but in his head it's like, no, I want the mashed potatoes and I want I want the steak or whatever they're eating. So this is all about family moments. And the idea is reading with your kids, just like you said, gently, having your kid on your lap, reading this book to them, letting them see themselves or think about how they may have been when they were Sonny's age.
Yeah. Yvette, we're publishing this interview during the month of February, during Black History Month, and it's wonderful that we're taking time to remember and honor the men and women throughout history who've made this country great. But you bring up a really good point. We all have family history that's really important to share with our kids, and not only when they're 3 and 4 and 5 years old and sitting on our laps, but all the way through their teen years and into adulthood, because there are stories from our lives, from our family history that our kids can learn from and grow from. And I think sharing those stories is a great way to bond together as a family.
You are so correct. And I know that hearing those stories gives children a sense of grounding, of belonging, of history, which says, I come from here, this is who I am, and then of course it's much easier to formulate, this is where I'm going. Mm-hmm. So you are right that all of that history, it plays a big part, because if it's not there, there's an emptiness when a child doesn't know, have that sense of grounding, and this is where we come from, and this is our family history. So this is a great time when you're reading these stories with your kids to share that information also.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you were telling me that while you're not a formal teacher like your mom was, you certainly are what we celebrate here on the podcast. You are your kids' first and most important teacher. And you were sharing with me that your kids were early readers like my kids.
Yes. And I will tell you that I have been mistaken for a teacher probably more times than any other profession. It would happen whenever I would go up to PTA meetings or visit the school. Parents would think I was a teacher. So I'm sure I got that honestly from my mom. And yes, I'm sorry, Julie, I forgot your question. I just went off on a tangent there.
No, that's fine. Now, I was sharing that you had shared with me that your kids arrived at school as early readers, probably like my son walking into kindergarten already knowing how to read. Yes,
that is correct. And that is because, I guess, just getting it from my mom, when they were toddlers and in diapers, we were saying the ABCs, we were pronouncing the letters. I had the hard story books for them, and we were pointing to the letters. And when we would go out and in the car or walking, stop. See the sign? Stop. S-T-O-P. So as early as 2 and 3 and 4, they begin to put that information together. It's awesome how the brain works. Anything that's repetitive, it begins to assimilate and make sense of. And that's certainly what happened. And at age 4, all of them were reading probably on the first or somewhere around their first or second grade level.
Yeah. And we're talking about history and the fact that they're, and looking back at history, it reminds us that not everybody has experienced the same. We all come from different circumstances. And your kids, my kids, arrived at school knowing so many more words than the peers that hadn't been read to. And they had such a big advantage to those other kids. One of the reasons I started the podcast is that I wanted the podcast to inspire families, to inspire our society, to make sure not that we hold back your kids or my kids so that they don't enter school reading, but so that we can elevate everybody, so that everybody entering kindergarten heard those 800,000 words that your kids and my kids heard when they were growing up.
I absolutely concur, and I remember overhearing conversations from my mother, who was a reading specialist for some of that time during her career. She would say things like, you could always tell the type of family a child comes from, because some of them will be familiar with certain vocabularies where others would not. And it's quite telling when you enter first grade. Some kids will be familiar with holding a book and turning the pages and thinking about it as they read the story. They're already prepared for the question that's going to come, or they're ready to ask a question about the story, whereas other kids are just sitting there like looking around. They have no interest. There's no familiarity. So I want to underscore with you how important it is that you read with your kids as toddlers, before they come to school, as infants even. It's never too early, because reading to them helps them develop positive associations with reading. And it also, again, like I stated before, stimulates the brain development. So when they actually hear the alphabet, the first beginning words, they're already familiar. And what a head start that gives children. Mm-hmm. It's huge.
Now, one of the things, I had a conversation with my wife and her best friend. My wife's a veteran teacher, veteran special needs teacher here in Boston. Her best friend is a principal of an elementary school. And I said to them, what can we do specifically to help those kids, to help those families that aren't reading right now, to inspire them to read with their kids? And their answer to me was, Jetly, you have no idea. A lot of the parents that we serve can't read, or they can't read in English, or they come home from work and they're working 2 or 3 jobs and they're exhausted. You're doing something for those families with your Storytime channel on YouTube. Was that the inspiration behind it, or did you just love stories so much?
Well, it was similar. The specific inspiration for me in starting the Storytime channel is because I'm a natural storyteller. And whenever my kids would come to me with a problem at school or something that happened, they tease me about it now, but I could never just give a straight answer like, well, you should do this. I would always say, okay, well, let's imagine this. You had a little girl at school, and she was doing this, and then the teacher comes, now, what do you think? And they would be able to give an answer through the story because they're removed from it now. They're not seeing themselves. And then I would come back, well, maybe that's what you should do. And it was just so natural for me. So it was that, along with the fact that I loved fables growing up. I think we've gotten away from that gently a little bit, telling the stories with the moral and the values base. So for me, fables were the perfect way to start. I would share these stories like the tortoise and the hare, and then at the end talk about what are we learning about that? We're learning the value of slow and steady, of being consistent, of being patient, of not giving up. So not only can the kid read the story along with me, but now they can learn from it. They can learn the lessons and the rich values that are there in those fables. So that's what's behind my story time with Miss Diamond Child.
Why do you think because I agree with you, I think we have moved away from those classic fables and those timeless lessons that you and I both grew up with. Why do you think our society has kind of pulled away from that?
I could talk about, we have to do another show. But I'm going to give you the quick and simple answer. I really believe that we have moved into sensationalism. We value the effect of the, oh my God, or the, we want to bring all this emotion out of people through entertainment instead of some of the basic values. Now, there's certainly time to have, sensationalism, but I don't think it's when you're in grade school. I think that's the time to really instill good, honest, universally accepted values and principles. So for a kid, rather than getting their emotions all, stirred, it's probably a better use of their time to learn how to treat one another, what being polite means, what it means to be empathetic, and why you should be. So but however, the good news is there is a growing base of people that wants to get back to these basic family values, and that's where things like Storytime with Miss Diamond come in, and The Adventures of Sunny, because it's all about just very pure, basic, but universal human principles, family values that we can pretty much all agree upon, like being kind to one another. Yeah,
that you're right. There are certain values that are just accepted across the board. They might be tweaked here and there, but bottom line, I've lived almost 100 years and I've met millions of people, and we all want to be treated with kindness. We all want to be treated with respect. We all want to have opportunities, and and these are things that we can and we absolutely should be sharing with our kids. And I agree with you. The idea that we are, as a society, sensationalizing things, or another word that I've heard used is we're catastrophizing things.
Oh, yes, because it's bigger and bigger for every generation. And if there's one tip I could share with parents, having gone through this with 3 kids of my own, it's to really keep them in age-appropriate entertainment. And books are a big part of that. So think about it. If they're 10, 11, 8, 9, what is appropriate for that age? And to go further, I would suggest spend those early years just instilling some great human values, curiosity, kindness, self-respect. Because if you do that and you give them that solid base and foundation, they are so much more prepared to not allow the over-sensationalism to overtake them.
Right, yeah. One of the things, as you're talking here, one of the things I want to encourage families is to go out, find some books on media literacy, how you can help yourself and your kids become more media literate, to help your kids understand, to help you understand that every form of media was created by someone with an intention.
Absolutely.
Evette created the Adventures with Sunny series to share these age-old values.
Yes.
There's some people who are creating television shows because they want to sell cereal, or because they have different values that they want to instill on kids.
Very true. I couldn't have said it better than myself. Look behind the cover, if you will, to see the intentions. Why is this out here? Is it out here to make money? Is it out here to instill violence? That could be the case. Yeah. So look for that. I agree with you.
Yeah. It sounds like you have a lot of hope for the future. You're recognizing that there are these challenges and that there are these problems in the world, but I hear Sunny in your voice. I hear hope. in your voice. Am I right about that?
Yes, absolutely. That is so true. We get a choice generally. So we have all of these different things coming at us, but we get to choose what we're going to focus on and what's going to be our future direction. So I do hear the voice of my brother Sonny telling me, stay the course, be positive, choose something positive for yourself. His nieces and nephews who are my kids, he's not around to see them, but I know he would appreciate instilling these positive values, and because they're concepts that you come back to. Your foundation is always going to be there. When you build the house, it's the foundation that's always going to be the underbelly or the undercurrent of what you're doing. So foundational principles, values, foundations like learning to read, wanting to read, all of this is so important so you can choose, and it will help you choose your next steps.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to ask you to tell our audience where they can find your Storytime with Miss Diamond channel. But before we do, I think that you agree with me that you didn't create the Storytime with Miss Diamond to be a babysitter. You didn't create it so that parents could just plop their kids in front of the laptop and then leave the room. You're probably wanting the parents and kids to experience the story times together.
Absolutely. I understand that parents are busy and it's so easy for them to sit their kid in front of something, and we all do that at times. There's no judgment here. So with the story time episodes, I'll read a fable and then talk about not only the fable but the moral lessons and the teachings and the values that are there. And it really has evolved into story time for kids and parents, because I even go to the larger lessons for the parents and how can you model this to your kids, and something for parents to talk to their kids about. So I speak to the child, but I also speak to the parent on a lot of these videos. So if the parents can be there, that would be a plus. But I believe there's enough there also to help keep the child engaged.
Excellent. So tell everybody where they can find a Storytime with Miss Diamond, and also where they can connect with you online.
Absolutely. So starting with Storytime with Miss Diamond, it's a YouTube channel. So just type in Storytime with Miss M.S. Diamond, and that's D-Y-M-O-N-D. Storytime with Miss D-Y-M-O-N-D on YouTube. That will bring up my channel. Please subscribe there. And then as far as the books, The Adventures of Sunny, remember it's a 5-book set. So you just put in the name of the book or the name of the series, The Adventures of Sunny, and the author name. That's important. So The Adventures of Sunny, and then my name, Evette Davis, spelled Evette-Davis. And it's important that you put both together because there's an old collection of books called The Adventures of Sunny, I think from the 70s or 80s. So in order to bring up mine, just put in The Adventures of Sunny and the author name, Evette Davis. And the third place would be my website where you can see all of this. The website is diamondjewel.com, and the spelling DYMONDJEWEL.com.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of the Adventures of Sunny series and also the driving force behind Storytime with Miss Diamond, Evette Davis. Evette, thank you so much for being with us.
Generally, thank you so much for having me, and happy February, and let's see how 2021 picks up after this.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Jennifer Gennari. She'll be here to celebrate Muffled. If you are the author of a great children's book, you want to check out our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program. Help your book stand out from the crowd of books that are published every single month. Check it out today at our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, want to thank our guest, Evette Davis. Be sure to check out her Adventures of Sunny series. Also want to thank my amazing team, starting with Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan. I want to thank our interns this semester, Alexia Brown and Hannah Pat Oboyski. Most of all, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.